Good morning, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another episode of Lovin Daily. I'm Julian Bonnici. Joined with me today is David Grecorpani. It's his first episode. You'll know him from TikTok and all our other social media platforms, so make sure you give him a good welcome in the comments below. We've got a really good show for you today. Our first story is all about quite a horrific incident where a gay man was jumped and beaten after being catfished on Grindr. The second story is all about Malta's COVID-19 regulations and how no non-resident Malta arrivals must pay for their stay at a government-approved hotel if they need to quarantine. The third story is all about a video that emerged online of sludge being seeped out into a bay in Bahar el-Shah. The fourth story is about the Daphne Caruana Galizia public inquiry and how it's finally been concluded and now will be submitted to Malta's Prime Minister. And the last story is all about Malta's COVID confusion on regulations and how a Polish woman is struggling to get her certificate even though she was fully vaccinated months ago. And before we get onto it, don't forget to subscribe to Lovin Digest. How haven't you already? It's our newsletter giving you a rundown of all our stories of the day. It's super easy to apply. Just go on lovinmalta.com and click away. David, our first story, quite a horrific incident.
Yeah, in fact, we kick off today's news with one of the more shocking stories to come out of the island this week. A young Maltese gay man has given a frankly harrowing first-hand account of how he was catfished, set up, robbed and beaten in public in Sliema. The incident happened earlier last year in 2020. The man basically matched with another man on the popular dating app Grindr. Some weeks of flirting quickly turned a little bit sinister after, the man was demanded to pay for sex. There was an offer for €100 for oral sex. The man who was speaking to even offered to sweeten the deal by bringing another man to the meeting. He decided to take the plunge and meet him anyway, but as soon as it turned violent, he fled the scene and realized that this is, a preying catfish. I did not speak to him for some weeks, but then later was walking down the road in Sliema, heard his name being called out in public, and before he knew it, he was on the floor being punched and kicked and left with what a medical report described as life-threatening injuries. A police report was filed. This was 26th March 2020, so last year, and the man has now opened up and given further information on this, shocking account because he wants to raise more awareness and says basically his attacker is still at large. He's still roaming the streets, he's still roaming Grindr. Allegedly, this man has 2 children, and of course, his victim does not want anyone else to suffer the same fate. Frankly, terrifying news, a shocking account, coming from places that we've all frequented before. This is Sliema after all, and it's also shocking that this is 2020, on an island that's been touted as the most gay-friendly country on the planet.
Yeah, exactly. I think the point's right there, right? Malta, really praised itself on the laws that they've done for civil liberties, but maybe sometimes, laws really aren't enough. Obviously, the incident was condemned online on social media. The LGBTIQ plus groups were all commenting on it. However, allied rainbow communities actually gave Lovin Malta some helpful tips to pass on to their readers when using online apps. Remember, this doesn't just apply to gay people, straight people, whatever sex you are. There are so many dating apps out there nowadays. But basically, just a few tips to keep in mind. Don't trust anyone's photos just on the basis of photos, right? It's super easy to get easy photo online, take it from someone who's in the media. It's super easy to get these details. If you do that, if just photos, try get access to maybe an official social media account or whatever to actually get to know this person a little bit more. Always tell a friend where you're going, so that somebody always knows at least where you are. And maybe, don't go to somebody's apartment, try and meet somewhere for a place for coffee and stuff, and maybe try get to know the person first. If you want to see more about these tips, just go on lovinmalta.com. They're all over there. And if you have any similar stories, please reach out. We'd be more than happy to help you with any problem you may have. On to our next story. Another day, another small change to Malta's COVID-19 restrictions. So yesterday, after all the confusion of the legal notice, backtracking on a previous decision, and now demanding that all people without a COVID vaccine certificate must quarantine in Malta, the government has since clarified that all non-residents who are arriving in Malta without a vaccine certificate must quarantine in a hotel, a government-approved hotel, and pay €100 per night while staying there. 14-day quarantine, €100 per night sounds like a pretty steep bill, unfortunately. That €100 cost covers everything though, from food and stuff, but can you imagine coming to Malta, you think on holiday, and you're quarantining inside a hotel for 2 weeks, paying €100 a day for doing it. This residents, thankfully, can request an alternative accommodation. However, that can only be approved by the Superintendent of Public Health. There was really no criteria given as to what kind of residents will be approved or not. Me, for example, I live in quite a large apartment block. What will that mean for me? Will I have to go stay in a hotel because there are so many people who actually live quite close to me? We'll see. What we do know for sure is that these restrictions and stuff are already having their effects, right? Is that there were reports that the government has had to sort of find a second COVID quarantine hotel already. God knows how many they're going to have to find in the coming days and weeks. And beyond that, it's already feeling the pinch in the economy. Today, a Times of Malta report actually quoted Malta saying they've lost 6,000 flight bookings, right? And I think that's really the crux of the issue on this regard, right? 6,000 flights, that's so many people who would have paid hotels, shops, restaurants, keeping all these industries going that have been struggling so much, and this is why maybe I think the tourism ministry really needs to respond to it. We've sent questions and we're still waiting for a reply on that.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's been weeks and months of this travel restriction argument going on, and the problem is you can kind of understand both sides of the coin, and that's kind of the crux of it all. You have people saying we've been disciplined, we've been strict for all this time, we've been careful, we've also been promised a return to normality. First it was January, then March, then May, now we're in July, summer is nearly ending, we're still with these very strict measures. Does it make sense? Is this not counterproductive to a return to normality? On the other hand, of course, you have other people who are saying the pandemic is still raging on, cases are still skyrocketing. Just yesterday we had 222 cases in Malta, so we're at 1,200 active cases again, 1212 to be precise. Of course, then you need to understand that 1,000 cases today and 1,000 cases last year are not the same, of course, because of the vaccine. A hefty chunk of the community is vaccinated. Hospitalizations are very low. So the argument still stands of whether, forcing someone to pay €1,400 is really the way out of this. Moving on to our next story. Yesterday, Lovin Malta published a short video clip of what seemed to be brown sludge seeping out of the coastline in Bahar el-Shaq. The video quickly went viral. A lot of people were very disgusted at the scene. Some even pointed their fingers at the very popular yet somewhat divisive Splash and Fun water park, which could be seen in the background of the video at one point. But the owner of the water park, Patrick Vella, has since clarified that this is definitely not a case of drainage seeping through the seawater. He's even offered an explanation. He basically said that it was the main pipe that draws seawater for their pools. It was damaged, and because it's located, a couple of meters underground, soil seeped through and pumped all of that brown sludge into the sea. He said it's simply clean water, mixed with soil. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on site to confirm this claim. He said that ERA were on He's apologized, of course. Vella has since apologized for any inconvenience caused, even though you could actually see some people swimming as the water turned brown around them. He said that this actually happened 2 days ago, and that by yesterday morning, it was all back to business as usual, and people were enjoying the sea. I don't know. I think, you know, a quick smell test could have probably clarified the whole issue, and even if it was 100% clean, which we have yet to see, I'm not myself very keen on swimming anyway, as is. I haven't even, been to the beach yet, and it's already mid-July. I don't think I would be keen on jumping headfirst into brown sea. I don't know about you.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. It should be noted as well that ERA's investigation is still underway. When we asked the Environment Ministry to confirm the claim, whether it's just soil, they said, listen, the environmental impact is still being studied, and we're speaking to other entities like the Water Service Corporation to get to the bottom of the incident. Onto our next story, public inquiry linked to the assassination of journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia has finally been concluded and has been submitted to the Prime Minister and State Advocate, and it will eventually, in the coming days, be submitted to Daphne Caruana Galizia's family. So obviously we've been waiting quite a while for this public inquiry. Daphne was murdered on 16th October 2017. I remember her family fighting tooth and nail to get this public inquiry off the ground. The government under Joseph Muscat really didn't want it to happen, and it only ended up happening once the Council of Europe ordered it. The public inquiry actually started on December 2019, so more than 2 years after her murder, and coincidentally, literally just as Jorgen Fenech was getting arrested and charged in connection to the assassination. Now, we're not sure really how much of this public inquiry is going to make it to the public, right? Unfortunately, the Prime Minister and State Advocate do actually have certain rights to redact the inquiry. However, I do think, for the sake of the general public who really want answers, that a lot of the material, unless that material is under criminal investigation, should be made public. Remember, I followed it personally, this public inquiry, really from start to finish, and we've seen some quite frankly incredible testimonies, right, from people like Melvin Toma, Keith Kembry, Joseph Muscat, Chris Cardona, Conrad Mitzi, loads of Malta's top officials. We've had really shocking statements from former officials, from even her family members, of sort of what it was like being Daphne Caruana Galizia in the years leading up to her murder, So it was some really horrific details. Quite crucially, though, as well, about a month ago, Jorgen Fenech's text messages were actually submitted as part of the evidence of the public inquiry. On that mobile, Jorgen Fenech has messages with loads of top officials, whether it's Rosian Kutayar, whether it's Keith Kembry, whether it's Joseph Muscat, whether it's the head of MGA, whether it was the head of MFSA. There's some really crazy conversations in there, and to be honest, we can't have them buried under a rug. I think Malta finally deserves answers.
Yeah, look, the fact of the matter is that we're very steadily approaching half a decade since Daphne Caruana Galizia's assassination. In those years, we've had, years of pain, of anger, of frustration, of protests, of allegations, of accusations. We've had everything. What we haven't had is closure. And hopefully, this latest development means that closure and some sort of truth will finally emerge, not only for Daphne Caruana Galizia's family, of course, who very desperately need it and deserve it, but also to the entire nation, that has been operating in the very dark shadow of this horrific assassination for years now. On to our final story, yet another COVID-related story. A Polish woman who has been living in Malta for the last year with her Maltese boyfriend has yet to get her vaccine certificate, even though she was fully vaccinated months ago. The woman was part of a prioritized cohort because she works at a private medical clinic, but she just couldn't get her vaccine certificate, and she started encountering problems when she tried to present her Polish ID. She was told that is not adequate proof of identity and that she needed to present a Maltese document. She never got a Maltese document because she never needed it, because she's an EU citizen. So of course, what should have been a very, very quick procedure of, logging onto a website and just downloading a vaccine certificate for a jab that you very clearly have in your hand, turned into a very rigorous, very tiring, very frustrating procedure of visiting offices, websites, government branches, emails, helplines. Her last update was the Mater Dei vaccination team themselves, who told her, look, just scan all the documents you have, send them to us, and we'll try to push forward your request. That was a few days ago, but of course the Polish woman has said maybe this is going to end up being yet another dead end. Extremely frustrating, especially considering the woman desperately needs to get back to Poland to visit her family and to address some very urgent family matters. In fact, the situation has gotten so desperate that she has told Lovin Malta she is even considering getting vaccinated all over again in Poland just to be able to avoid, this dreaded 14-day quarantine procedure that we just mentioned moments ago. Extremely frustrating, and what makes it even more frustrating is that she's not alone. We've been flooded by a lot of similar complaints by a lot of different nationals. The latest one was also an Australian national who could not obtain his vaccine certificate in Malta, even though he was jabbed here. By the time he did eventually get the vaccine certificate, it had a typo in his name and the wrong date listed for the vaccine. So pretty useless. Very frustrating, especially considering that these are people who very gladly were vaccinated, weeks, months ago. They're doing their utmost, they're doing absolutely everything they can, and now the onus is down to just being given, that green tick of you did something.
Yeah, exactly. And listen, whatever people think about the actual restrictions themselves, what's really important is once they are in place, the government should really have the administrative structure to deal with the queries, the different kinds of things that are in place, right? As you said, we've been inundated with calls, even from people who can't download their vaccine certificate, and people who are reaching out to government departments and not even getting a reply for weeks on end. The government really needs to step up its game to the same level that it stepped up its vaccination campaign, right? We've done really, really, really well. And remember, this administrative headache comes just as Malta is going to introduce walk-in clinics that are opening on Monday. Now, it's a really good initiative to get the vaccines out there. They're going to be in Mosta, Zaytun, St. Jules and Valletta. You can check out all the dates on lovinmalta.com. But that means a huge influx of people taking the vaccine, right? And people are going to take the vaccine, start getting the certificate and stuff like that. And we can't have a system where people are just going to be blocked off it and being shoveled around to a bureaucratic nightmare, in Malta, which can be a real nightmare. So hopefully, these places are beefed up a little bit. And on that note, let's leave it for here today. That's all from us, and have a day full of loving.